Welcome to the Savvy Property Investors Podcast, a weekly show that delivers the best hard-hitting property industry news, business advice, and talks that will get you ascending in the real estate industry. Now, here's your host, the amazing award-winning property and business coach, best-selling author, and serial entrepreneur, Miss Sapphire Gray.
So welcome to the Savvy Property Investor Show and welcome to a new year, 2022. Today's topic is how to make the most of your property investment in 2022. Our special guest today, and it's an honor for me to have Simon Zutshi from the Property Investors Network. He'll be sharing with us great insights in how to make the most of your property investments in 2022. Simon Zutshi has discovered and implemented what it takes to be successful in not only just property business too. Amassing a multi-million-pound property portfolio, author of The Property Magic, and an international bestseller with over 100,000 copies currently in circulation. Founder of the pioneering Property Investors Network, you may know it as PIN, the largest UK property network organisers, and founder of the peer-to-peer lending platform Crowd Property, which has lent over 100 million to UK property developers, funding the development of over 1,200 homes and over 80 million spent in the UK economy. Widely recognised as one of the top wealth creation strategists in the UK, Simon has been building his wealth and empire since 1995. By 32, he became financially independent. With no plans to stop, Simon has and continues to teach thousands of like-minded entrepreneurs and business owners how to successfully invest in a tax-efficient way, create additional streams of income, give them more time to do the things they want to do, and build long-term wealth. It's an honor and absolute pleasure to have you here, Simon. I am your host, Sapphire Gray. Welcome, Simon. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, thank you. And it's really great to be here on the show. So thank you so much for asking me. And I hope we can give massive value to everyone listening and watching.
Oh, you're absolutely going to do that. So first, top off the question. If you were at the beginning of your property investment journey, what would your focus be on right now?
Okay, so really, I think if you want to do any new venture, whether it's a business or property, whatever it might be, I think you need to do your due diligence and you need to do your research and you need to learn what to do. When I started investing, there were no podcasts, there were no webinars, there were no network meetings, there were no seminars. There probably were a few books, but I never thought I would read a book to learn how to buy a property, right? Any idiot can buy a property, and many idiots do buy properties. Yeah. And, you know, I did it on my own and I did okay, but I also made so many mistakes. And so now, because I'm more advanced in my journey, shall I say, if I ever want to learn anything new, I don't go online and try and learn it myself. I try and find the best person I can find who's become very good at not only doing that thing, but also teaching other people to do that thing. And I will pay them to learn from them. And that's maybe because where I am right now, what I've experienced. But, you know, I've found that, and I do that often in business. I'm in a couple of different mastermind groups that I'm in, that I participate in. It's because I'm always investing in myself. And I think, you know, if you want to invest in property, it's important to invest in yourself first to make sure you do it correctly. If I could roll back the clock and do something, you know, and I was starting again, I would absolutely do exactly what I'm teaching other people to do.
I totally agree with that. And I especially always say that you must walk in the footsteps of those that have done it before you. Those Absolutely. Who have the experience, walk in their footsteps, buy their coaching programs, get them to teach you what they've made the mistakes in, what's made them the person that they are. Because you are the expert, so pay for it. Don't go on the YouTubes and look at YouTube and think, I'm going to discover.
Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of fantastic information out there. We've got a YouTube channel, we've got a podcast, lots of great free information. But the problem is, if you could spend a lot of time trying to collect all this information, You got to work out what's right and what's wrong. You got to organize it all by investing in yourself. You go to someone who hopefully has got a plan that you can follow, and it saves you a huge amount of time. And what everyone needs to understand is time is your most precious resource. You can always earn more money. You can never earn back your time.
Absolutely.
And so by investing in yourself and learning how to do it properly, you can save yourself a huge amount of time. You can get to the point where you can replace your income with property much, much quicker. And then you can spend your time doing whatever you want.
Absolutely. So that leads us on to, what are the 4 or 5 things that to do now if you're already a property investor?
Okay, so if you're already investing, I think let's just step back a little bit. I think a lot of people get into property by mistake. They become accidental landlords and they think, oh, this is quite good, get another one. And they often don't really have a plan. So if you're already in property, now you might have a plan, but many people I meet don't. So my first step would be, okay, just step back a minute and think, okay, I know property works. I've already got a few. I can see that it works, which, by the way, is a real advantage for people who are completely new, who don't have that belief that it works yet. They might see other people doing it, but they don't have the personal belief. But if you're already in property, you know it makes money, you know it works. So I would encourage you to step back and think about, what do I really want to achieve? And by the way, this is by the time this podcast comes out, it's a great time to think about this. People set new goals and things. And okay, what do I want to happen in my property journey in 2022? And if you get clarity on what you want and also why you want it, it's been much easier for you to navigate to get to that result. Whereas if you don't really know what you want, how do you know if you've got there? How do you even know where you're going? So that's the absolute first thing. Work out what you want and why you want it. Then when you've got that, you can then start to work out a plan. Just because you're investing already in property, it doesn't mean what you've been doing previously is necessarily the best thing to do. You might have been really successful. The market's been growing pretty much for the last 10 years with a massive boom in the last couple of years due to the pandemic, which was very surprising to most people, including myself. I thought the market was going to go down. And I was wrong, as were many people, as were the Bank of England. So I feel a little bit better. It's not just me. The Bank of England also thought it was going to go down. And that's why the government, by the way, came in and put all those measures in place that helped the market recover. But anyway, the point is that what you've done historically in a booming market may not be the best strategy if the market does change. And who knows what's going to happen. But normally, after a bit of a boom, there's always a bust or a correction. So who knows what? I don't think it's going to be as bad as 2008, 2009. That was totally different circumstances. So just because you've been successful in the past, it doesn't mean that's necessarily the best way for you to move forward. Because look, market changes, the economy changes, and we have to be prepared to adapt. And people who adapted when COVID hit, they were the people successful rather than people who are panicking, not knowing what to do.
Absolutely. So what do you think will happen in 2022 and beyond?
Well, let me just get my crystal ball and I'll tell you.
I think we're going to need one.
As I said, I was convinced at the end of, I thought halfway through 2020, when COVID was there and the Bank of England was saying prices are going to come down 16%, I was thinking this is not going to be good. And it was just before furlough came in, and I thought, right, sorry, furlough's going to end in October, I think they said September, October 2020. I thought when that happens, we're going to be in a bad position. And obviously that didn't happen. They extended it. We went into lockdown again. But the government interventions that came in caused the market to boom. Now, the government spent a lot of money. And so we as taxpayers are going to be paying it back for generations and generations. We're going to be paying it back. I think we will see the market starting to cool down, starting to come back a bit, to dip a little bit. I don't think it's going to be a huge crash, but who knows? But here's the thing, actually. I don't really mind what happens to the market. A lot of people think they're waiting for the right time. But actually, I think if you know what you're doing, it doesn't really matter what's happening in the market as long as you follow the golden rules that I talk about in Property Magic. So it might be very useful to mention those right now. So back in 2007, when I first wrote Property Magic, the end of that year, it was just coming to the peak and we're just starting to see the credit crunch hitting. I've been investing about 12 years by then. This is back in 2007. And I've been teaching other people for 4 years. And I noticed there were lots of similar mistakes that people were making. And I wanted to see, are there some guidelines I can come up with that would help people to minimize the risk and maximize returns? So I came up with the golden rules. So golden rule number one, we always want to buy from motivated sellers, people who might be flexible on the price and or the terms of the sale because they need a quick solution. They need speed and certainty. Rule number two, we always buy an area of strong rental demand. So we've got to be able to quickly and easily rent the property out if the current tenants move on to make sure we can cover all the costs and it's going to make money. That's actually rule number three. We only buy things that are going to give us positive cash flow.
That's right.
Okay? Rule number four, we're buying for long term. Yes, we can make money short term, but actually no one knows what's going to happen in the market. If you hold for long term, in the UK, we live on an island with a limited amount of accommodation and increasing population. So over time, property prices generally go up. Now they go up and down because it's cyclical, but generally they go up. So if you're holding long enough, and if you follow rule 2 and 3, i.e. you know you can always rent it out and you make cash flow, you don't need to sell. You're not forced to sell. Therefore, I don't really mind what happens short term. It's great when we have growth because it means all my properties getting good, really growth. But it's great when prices come down because it's easier to get in again at a better price. And also sellers are going to be more flexible. And then rule number 5, always have a little bit of money put aside. It could be in a bank, it could be on a credit card. It's just something to fix any problems that are not covered by insurance. So that if you have a problem property, you can get it rented out straight away. And if you follow the golden rules, you'll minimize the risk and maximize the returns.
Absolutely agree with those 5 golden rules. And it becomes a thing that you need to keep on repeating the rules. Once you understand the rules, then it's just rinse and repeat. It's just a pattern that you get into. And that's how I know that you're an expert in what you're doing, because you're teaching people, stick to these rules. And then you'll be successful. And that is, it's simple, 5 steps and I'll be successful.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
having an expert behind you to support that success as well.
Yeah, and there's a bit more to it behind that, obviously. But the principles, when I've seen people make mistakes, it's because they've broken at least one of those rules. If you stand by, just take that from this podcast, that will really, really help you in the future with your investing.
Absolutely. So when you're looking at investments, are you currently looking at any property hotspots? Are you keeping your eye on anything that you see that is coming up?
So it's a great topic, hotspots. People say, where's the great hotspot to buy? And I don't like recommending hotspots for the simple reason that there might be an amazing place right now. And if I was to say where that was, people might be listening in 6 months' time. Oh, it's brilliant. And it may not be such a good hotspot then, because what you got to think about is a hotspot means that prices go out really quick and lots of people are piling in. And really, you want to get in before that happens. You know, and just because prices have gone up quickly in an area doesn't mean they're going to continue. Maybe most of the growth has already happened. So here's my tip, rather than recommending a particular place, is this. If you can find an area where the population is increasing faster than it is in other areas, that is going to have an increased demand for accommodation, increased demand for people who want to rent, increased demand for people who want to buy as well. So if you find those areas with that increasing population, you're probably going to rent the property easier for more money, and you're going to be able to get some better capital growth than others. So that's my simple tip. Yeah,
and I always tell people to look at what local authorities are struggling to find social housing. Because if you can't find the social housing, the landlord comes in and says, right, I can provide housing. So always look on the websites for the local authorities that are struggling to house the people that are on their list. And
I completely agree. And check, the council is a great source of information. Look at what's their plan for the town or the city. What do they believe? Because they will have numbers that they think the population is going to increase by based on employment and stimulation in the economy. And so they're planning for that. They're building a certain number of houses, but we can't build houses quick enough. The UK government say, and you go and Google this if you want, they say that we need about 300,000 new homes around the UK every single year. And yet, as a country, we were only building a couple of 100,000, 200,000. So there's a shortage. There's just not enough accommodation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So tell us, what can you do to create a solid property strategy then? What is it that you do?
So I think going back to some things we've already said. So you want to work out what you want first of all, and why do you want that? Educate yourself to work out what's the best strategy. And look, I wish there was one strategy that worked for everyone. It would make my life so much easier. But there isn't. Everyone's different in terms of their knowledge, the location they're in, their experience, the resources they have, time and money, etc. So you've got to kind of find the strategies that work for you and your lifestyle. And to do that, you kind of need to get a bit of an awareness of all the strategies at a top level to work out which are the ones I want to do. Then you can drill down and learn those particular ones. Okay. Yeah. So I think get that clarity of focus, what I want to achieve. And then think about your resources. Okay, do I have the resources myself? And we can talk a little bit later in the podcast if you want about that. And the two basic ones are savings and then maybe equity in your home. So can I access money to invest? Great, if I can. If not, well, I either need to find strategies where I don't need a lot of money, such as rent to rent, which is a great place to start. Yeah. Or better than rent to rent is a purchase lease option, and they don't need a lot of money, but they give you great cash flow. Or do I do joint ventures where other people might bring the money in, or private loans where people put the money in, and that's then based on you finding really good deals in the first place. So it's kind of working out based on your criteria what might be the best route forward. Because no point you going out looking for properties need lots of money if you don't have the money, we don't have anyone else who can put the money in for you.
Yeah, I've known people to just say, yeah, I found a property and I'm going to buy this property. Then when it comes down to the finances side of it, well, have you got the deposits, the stamp duty, the legal fees? And they said, oh, I didn't know I needed all of that. Well, hey, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's about knowing a strategy to suit your pocket, I always say.
Yes, absolutely. But I'd like to just, I completely agree with that, but there's one little twist I'd like to give people as well. And that's this, that sometimes people might say, well, I've got a certain amount of money, and I'm going to go and buy a house based on that budget, okay? And normally it might be a £200,000, £300,000, £400,000 property, depending on where you are in the country or how much people have, right? But actually, if you look at, once you've got some experiences, if you look at bigger projects, it might be more like the $1 million mark, okay? Well, most investors don't have their own funds to do those kind of projects, and so there's not as much competition, right? But if the numbers work, and if it's a good deal that's got profit for you and enough for you to give someone else, when you've got a good enough network of people around you, the deal will speak for itself in terms of people will see it's a good deal. As long as you secured it with a purchase option, something like that, then you don't have to have the money. So whilst we both agreed you've got to think about what's going to work for you, don't limit yourself just to your financing. Recognize it's a good deal. There are other people who can help you finance it.
True. And there is a lot of people. I mean, obviously you've got crowd property funding as well, as a go-to as well. If you find a deal, you can't finance it, but I could come to you and say, hey, I've got this deal. I've done all the due diligence on it. It works. You look at it and think, yeah, we want, to partake in that deal. So there is ways of getting to know other investors as well that can JV with you, or other financiers that can also come in on the deal.
Well, if you think about it, that there are people that go to property training events or property networking events who've got money. They understand that it's smart to educate themselves rather than make expensive mistakes. So they go to training or to networking to try and learn what to do. And then sometimes when they realize, oh, it's a bit more work than I thought, a bit more hassle, a bit more effort, they might want to work with someone who's listening to this training right now who actually knows how to find great deals and could do all the running around for them. So going out and speaking and meeting other, because people say, oh, where am I going to meet these people? Well, get out there, speak to people, tell them what you're doing, start to build up your personal network.
Yeah, and it is about building up that know, like, and trust as well. Because once you're out there, people start to see who you are. You're talking the same talk. They know that you're easy to find because you would attend a networking event. And I love networking for that purpose only as well. To meet people so I can engage with them and see who they are about. That when I know that I want something, they are willing to give it because, they've seen who you are. You've been around the block, you know?
You're absolutely right there. They got to know, like, and trust you. And that's why raising your profile on social media and getting out to network meetings, it's so important. Because if you could have the very best deal, you could have the deal of the decade, but if no one knows you, you're going to find it very difficult to actually get support to fund the deal.
So if let's say someone has received a windfall of money, what would you advise them?
Well, okay, so people sometimes get an inheritance. You might have someone who's struggled all their life, they've not had money, and they get an inheritance from someone. It might be cash, or a lot of people inherit a property. And let's talk about that, because that's probably the most common one for people. So, and a lot of people, they don't know that, well, that property they've inherited, they don't live there. They could get a buy-to-let mortgage on that. They might need to spend a bit of money to get it improved, but they could borrow some money to get it improved and get it remortgaged and start renting out. And that might be a great first step to get a property, because you haven't actually had to go and find one. You've just kind of been given one, so to speak. Now, it might be that particular property is not suitable in terms of location or type of property, and maybe just selling it to get the cash might be the better way to go. But if you've had this windfall of cash, you got to think about, again, goes back to saying, what do I want to achieve with this? And how do I get there? So I want to get maybe 4K a month income coming in. Okay, so what are the strategies to get there? Well, I could do HMOs, houses of multiple occupation, which might give me £1,000 profit a month. So then if I wanted 4,000 a month, I'd need 4 of those. And then say, how quick do I want to do it? And you can work out the plan. So again, it's not just jumping in and buying anything. It's really thinking about, what exactly do I want to do? And then go and get the specialist training you need, or support or coaching, or whatever it might be, to get the results you want, rather than trying to work it out yourself.
Absolutely. So you've shared some great information so far, but join us after the break with more insights from Simon.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button below. Our podcast is only made possible by great listeners like you.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for giving all of that information. I really appreciate it. And I think our audience and listeners are really going to get all the information sunk in, and it's going to be a plethora, because they're going to think, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And I can 100% agree with that. And you've given some great insights and tips so far. So are there any notable sacrifices a property investor needs to make to achieve success like yourself?
That's a great question. And I think ultimately the answer is yes. A lot of people think that property is a get-rich-quick scheme, and get-rich-quick suggests you make loads of money for no effort at all. Well, let me be really clear. It's not get-rich-quick, and if you're coming into it, want to make lots of money, no effort, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. And if people are telling you that, they're trying to fool you. Yeah. You can make a lot of money in property, and you can make it relatively quickly, but it does take time and effort. But what I want to share with you is, if you're doing it correctly, and there's certainly a right way and a wrong way to invest. You've got to learn how to do it properly. And I see a lot of people out there who are doing stuff, they're taking action, but because they're not really trained in the right way, they don't know exactly what they should be doing, and thus they're not getting results. Let me give you a formula that one of my coaches shared with me. Okay, you might want to write this down. So it's MA times RS times C equals massive results. So MA times RS times C equals massive results. Let me tell you what it stands for. MA stands for massive action. You need to get out, you need to be doing lots of stuff. But RS stands for the right stuff. So massive action times doing the right stuff times C stands for consistency. So take massive action of the right things and keep doing it. And if you do that, you will get great results. So it does take time and effort. And you know what? One of the hardest things is, you might be doing this because you want a better life for you want a better life for your family, for your loved ones, etc. But in the short term, it's a bit of time away from your loved ones, because you might be going to network meetings, might be listening to webinars, listening to podcasts, attending training events, whatever it might be. And that's some short-term sacrifice. And I actually did one of my podcasts very recently, was how do you get your significant other 100% on board with your property? Because if you have a partner, it can be really difficult if they don't get it. And the problem is, no one ever teaches this stuff in school or college. So most people don't understand investing. And there's a difference between a homeowner mindset and an investor mindset. Let me explain. So a homeowner we've all been told if you have your own home, and in this country, a lot of people want to get their own home. It's very aspirational to do that. And we're told the debt is bad and you borrow money to buy your house, but you need to pay that down as quick as you can and eventually pay your house off. And now that is actually good advice if you're only ever going to have one property. If you're only ever going to have one property, that's a good thing to do. However, as investors, instead of trying to pay that own home down, we recognize that the equity in that could be assets that we can take out. We can put them in as deposits into other properties, buy a lot more investments. Those investments should not only pay for themselves, but give us cash flow and profit to cover the cost of borrowing in our own home. So if you do this right, it shouldn't cost you a penny. In fact, you'll get positive cash flow. And over time, as the value of all the properties go up, you could then remortgage some of those investment properties and use that money to clear your own home. So you end up with your own home completely paid off, which you will need to do. And your investment properties, you just hold those to keep going up in value. You keep remortgaging if you want, and you keep getting cash flow. Absolutely. So that's the way you should it. But if you've got a partner who doesn't get that, you say, hey, honey, we're going to remortgage the house. They're going to freak out.
Yeah.
Right? Because so
if they're risk averse as well, if they're not willing to take that risk on you as well as their own future, then
exactly. So you got to get your partner on board. You got to get them to really understand that why you're doing this. Because as I said, if all they can see is you taking time away from them and the family, and you're putting in effort to do this, but you don't see results as quick as they or you would like them, they're going to get frustrated. It's going to be friction. Whereas if they completely understand, they know, look, it's not a get rich quick. It does take time and effort, but the time and effort you put in now is going to be so well rewarded for the rest of your life. Then you get the support you need and you can move forward. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. And I always tell my members, always tell them how golden their pension's going to be, how they can luxuriate when they come to retirement, because that's the time.
That's good advice.
Go ahead.
You got to let them see what's in it for them.
True.
How are they going to benefit? And actually, very often, a lot of my students, they do it because they want to replace their income from their job or from their business, but also they want their partner to be able to leave their work. And sometimes they actually get their partner out of work first, because then they're really bought on in that process. So in terms of sacrifices, look, let's be honest, it's going to take some time and effort. But also, it's not about just working hard. It's about working smart. Remember, it's about doing the right stuff rather than just doing lots of stuff. And the biggest problem is when people don't educate themselves, they put in loads of effort in, but it's misplaced. It doesn't get the results because they don't actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So how do you determine when it's the right time to invest, personal finances or market performances?
So again, another great question, and I think really it kind of depends to a certain extent on the individual. You could say that, if you're going to take some time to get out there and take action, and there's that short-term sacrifice we just talked about, you could say, well, is there ever really going to be a good time? You're always going to be busy with work. You're always going to have your kids to sort out, or your parents are looking at whatever, or someone's ill. The stuff goes on. That's kind of life.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about recognizing that if you sort this property thing out, actually you have more choice and freedom in a few years' time. It's about making that decision and that commitment, right? And I believe there are two great times to invest. The very best time was about 12 years ago in 2008, 2009, when the market crashed down. If you knew what you were doing then, there were some great opportunities. Interesting that most people were running away from property and running for the hills and not wanting to invest. But those of us who knew what we were doing and bought property then have done very, very well since.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes observing the masses and doing the opposite, which I think Warren Buffett talks about, is something you might want to think about doing. So if everybody, if you're everyone, your taxi driver, your restaurant waiters talking about buying property, maybe that's the wrong time. Maybe that means everyone's thinking it's too much. But there will come a time when it changes and there's a better time. But as I say, rather than waiting for the right time in the market, because no one knows what's really going to happen.
Absolutely.
And you could end up waiting and never actually get into property. So
true.
So educate yourself, follow the golden rules, and I think it's always a good time.
Absolutely. I was on one of your events on Sunday, and a young person that you was interviewing on there, I was very impressed by him because he said, yes, I've got a family, yes, I've got kids, but that wasn't going to be my excuse. I had to get my family involved, and so everyone knew what we was doing and how it was going. And I thought, that's everyone will make an excuse. I've got, he said he's still employed and still building out his property business, which he's done phenomenally well. And I thought, kudos to you, because you've actually said, I'm not going to have these excuses. I'm going to push myself forward. I've signed up for this course. I'm going to do what I need to do and still run my business, still go to work, and still have my family life as well. So he was managed everything.
It is about that balance. It is hard, but it's possible to do it. And here's the great thing. Because other people have already done it before you, it means it's absolutely, you're not a frontier fighter here. You're not trying to carve the way. You follow, as you said quite right earlier, you follow in their footsteps. Other people have done this, so can you. And it's all about having that end goal in mind, really.
So say a current investor has a few properties. How would they scale this or maximize their profits on their assets?
Well, one of the things when people do our mastermind program or some of our training, we say the first thing you should do is, if you are an investor, look at your existing assets. You see, all the time we meet people who've got property and maybe they were accidental landlords and they started acquiring these things. And it might well be that they've got properties in their portfolio which could be far more profitable. So maybe some of those are single lets and they could be turned into HMOs, housing multiple occupation, or maybe some of them could be turned into serviced accommodation, or maybe even it's just the rents have not kept up with the true market rate. And that's just by cosmetically improving the property, you can actually lift the rates quite a bit. So my first tip is always to look at your existing portfolio and see what can I do to improve that. Before I buy anything else, it's got to be a really smart exercise to do.
Yeah.
The next thing is, depending on how long you've been doing it, I've been investing since 1995. Over the last 26 years, I have absolutely bought some properties which, knowing what I know now, I would not buy if I had a second chance, right?
I agree with that.
Anyone who's been in property for a while, if they're honest, will probably have a few of those.
Yeah, I've got some of those.
So my recommendation is this, and we said, hey, we did what we thought was right with the knowledge we had at the time, right? And so it's always good to recognize you don't know what you don't know and have an open mind to new things. But I would suggest that what I do, I look at my portfolio each year, I review it, and I try and work out, okay, which of these is not such a good property? Which one is not giving me so much cash flow, or it's not a very good return on an investment, or maybe the value's gone up so much, the money that's trapped there is not being used very well, or maybe it's one I've fallen out of love with because I've had some hassle and emotionally I don't want it, or there's been bad tenants or bad letting agent, whatever it is. And I would try and pick one property that I identify that I can sell, because if we sell one property a year, at the moment, there's a personal capital gains tax allowance. I think it's 12,300. I think it might have just changed. And then if you own it in joint names, by the way, you and your partner both get that. So you could get almost £25,000 tax-free from the sale of that property. And then on the rest, you've got to pay your capital gains tax if it's not your own home. And what I do is I sell one property, I take that, get the one that's not so good, I take the money and I reinvest it in a much better property. And I've had some tax-free income. And when you're a high rate taxpayer, believe me, tax-free income is very, very welcome.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
That's what I would suggest that existing landlords do, got some property. So can you maximize the rental income, and is there one you need to sell to release cash and use it elsewhere? And the other thing is, again, be really honest with yourself. What you've done so far, it might have worked quite well, but is it really what you need to take you to the next level of your investing? And it might be that, yes, what you've done is great, you just need to do more of it and you need to make a fresh commitment and step up and take more action. Or it might be, actually, I've done single lets and I've never really done HMOs, so I don't know about it. Maybe I need to educate myself, get the training, and then go and do them. Often people don't do these things because they've heard a little bit, but a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous.
Absolutely.
They need to get the correct knowledge and then go to the next level.
Absolutely. Are there any market trends that you think will drive in this year?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people say to me, "Oh, Simon, you talk a lot about HMOs," which I do, because it's not the only strategy we teach, but it's a very popular one because it's a quick way to replace your income. And a lot of people say to me, "Yeah, well, I've looked at HMOs, but there are so many in my area," and that's right. I believe there is an oversupply of HMOs in most areas. But, and here's the really important thing, it's an oversupply of very average HMOs. You see, I think that what we teach, you should have very high-end HMOs, of very good quality. They attract a higher rent. They attract a better class of tenant who's prepared to pay that rent. And what it means is you make more money and you have less void periods. So again, although in some people might think, oh, HMOs is drying up, not if you do it correctly. Yeah. I think there's massive opportunity in commercial property. You know, we see there are empty offices, empty shops, because of COVID. The opportunity to take those and convert those into residential. Now, that's a more advanced strategy, but for those who have experience, it might be something you should look at. And obviously, the way we do that, a great strategy which came from commercial property is obviously creative things like purchase options and purchase lease options. And they're some of my favorite tools. They're not a strategy, they're a tool really, because they can be used in conjunction with any other strategy. Single lets, HMO, service accommodation, commercial property, commercial residential development, freehold, all of those in the right circumstance, you can use purchase options and purchase lease options. And it's one of those things that when I would speak at events, a property about, say, who's heard of a purchase option? And half the room might put their hand up. Now, keep your hand up if you've actually done a purchase option. And most people would kind of bring their hand down, apart from a couple. It's one of those things that people think they know about, but they've not actually done an option. I suggest they don't really know enough. And that means there's not actually that much competition of people who are actually doing successfully, because most people don't understand it. So be honest with yourself and recognize where are the knowledge gaps that might be holding you back, and have that really open mind in 2022 to say, okay, what do I need to do to upskill? What do I need to do to get a competitive advantage so that I'm finding the best deals in my area? Excellent.
So as a sought after businessman, how do you delegate and prioritize so you can focus on what matters the most?
So I don't always get it right, and I'm constantly trying to get better, but my secret is I have a great team. And I think a mistake many property investors and many solopreneurs do is they think they have to do everything on their own. And here's the thing, some things you're doing you're going to be great at, some things you're doing you're not going to be great at. You're taking a long time, you're not doing a great job, and actually you can delegate those to other people. And, you know, it's a big step in your business, whether it's your property business or other business, to take on staff and team and employees. And one of my mentors, a guy called Brad Sugars, who founded Action Coach, which is an international coaching franchise, he's got a great saying. He says, not employing that person in your business is costing you a fortune. Yeah. What he means by that is people often look at the cost of things. If I take someone on, I'm going to have to pay them a salary, and they're not looking at the value they're going to get from that. Because if you can get rid of the things that you don't like doing, you're not very good at, or really not a good use of your time, the time you get back means you can do much higher value activities and create a lot more income. So you've got more than enough to pay for that person you've taken on, and you probably have more time to yourself as well. So you don't have to take on full-time people. We use, and many of my students use, virtual assistants. They vary in quality, and people make mistakes. I've got a company I work with where they understand property, and they recruit their VAs. They do all the assessing. They teach them deal sourcing and stuff like that. So when you take on one of their VAs, you still have to train them to a certain extent how you want to work with them, but you're not training them from scratch. So you can get what you pay for in this world, and just be careful about not trying to be a tight landlord, doing everything on a budget, and actually taking yourself a lot longer to do things, because, as I said earlier, time is your most precious resource.
Absolutely agree with that. I've got virtual assistants, I've got paid staff as well.
Yeah,
they are a wealth of knowledge as well, because once I train them, they just rinse and repeat what I've trained them and just get out there and do it.
Absolutely.
And it's really taken off a burden of my time as well, because I always say my time is money, so therefore I need someone to take all the grunt work away from me, which they enjoy doing. It's not I'm putting onto something that I wouldn't do myself, but at least it gives them the opportunity, one, to be employed, but two, to really make my life a lot easier.
Absolutely.
As well.
And, you know, there's a real benefit, because we work with people in the Philippines, for example, and, you know, what we would pay someone in the Philippines, they are getting a very good salary for the Philippines. They're often university educated people, that kind of level. So they're not kind of stupid people. They got a really good work ethic. Their English is excellent. And actually, you know, you can send them a load of tasks during the day. They work during our night. And by the time you get up, a load of stuff's done for you. And it helps you move forward so much quicker. And what you employ them will be a lot less than you'd pay someone here on minimum wage.
True.
And you wouldn't get the same kind of caliber of person here.
Yeah, I agree with that. So you have succeeded at many impressive ventures, such as your book, pen, meetings, crowd property. What is next for you?
So I'm actually, I think it's public news. I've actually agreed to sell my business, my networking and my training. And I never thought I'd do that, but someone's made me a really good offer. I can't really refuse, but I do love training. So I've agreed I'm going to stay on for probably up to about 3 years doing a lot of the training, but also helping them grow the business around the world internationally. So we're going to have pin meetings around the world. So look out for that. If you're somewhere around the world, connect with us, because that's a great opportunity to raise your profile in those particular areas. LinkedIn's a great way to get a hold of me. And then also I will always be in kind of teaching and training. If I ever leave, I'm not going to compete. I'm not going to teach property, because I don't want to compete in my former business. It's my baby, really. I might train other things. I'm massively into personal development, maybe something in business. I've done a couple of very successful business things, and I've also had lots of mistakes and challenges as well. And you can sometimes look at someone who's been successful and you think, oh, it's easy for them. They've done this. Well, let me tell you, PIN has been an overnight success, 18 years in the making. You know, and sometimes people see the success, they don't see the hard work and the effort and all the failures. I've had a number of businesses that haven't worked, but I think the difference between people like us, people listening to this who are probably entrepreneurial, is we're prepared to have a go. And if it doesn't work, okay, it doesn't work. We take the lessons learning and we're better next time. Whereas sometimes people, they don't get success straight away. They have some failure and they give up and go back to what they were doing. And it's such a shame, because they had that spirit, but they just didn't give it the patience and the persistence to see it through. So, and then the other thing, I'm still going to be doing property investing, because there are some, I think next couple of years going to be some amazing opportunities. And the final thing is, I'm setting up a charity, a foundation, a not-for-profit charity, to really help kids, school kids, that kind of age, to understand not about property, but about money and about finance and cash flow. Because I don't know about you, but I must have missed the wealth creation lessons at school.
Yes, I did.
The hard way. And wouldn't it be great if we can change a whole generation? Because we have a systemic problem in this country. Unfortunately, you know, many people are on benefits and their parents are on benefits and their kids think that's what they're going to have to do. And rather than thinking, well, actually, rather than relying on someone else, or maybe it's difficult to get a job, and not now, it's not as easy right now. If you've got something about you, it's very easy to get a job. But rather than relying on someone else, why not start your own business? Why not actually be the employer of other people? And you have to rely on someone else. And it's about trying to create belief in these kids that they can do more. And, you know, if we can create a whole new generation of entrepreneurs who become business owners and employers, that's the true way to support this economy. And that's how we can make this a great country once again.
Brilliant. I myself, I love teaching entrepreneurship to young people. I set up a junior enterprise scheme some years ago, and I went into the schools and they would set up their companies inside the schools.
Yeah.
Tuck shops they used to have inside the schools, and I used to teach them. So I would love to learn more about your charity, because that is something
you will hear all about it when it's all set up. Because I want to reach out to the community and say, look, guys, how about we can get involved and all around the country? And so the way I want to do it, I'll let you into a little secret here. So it's really difficult, not impossible. It's very difficult to get into schools because their curriculum time is really difficult. And actually going in and speaking to kids is a really hard audience. You know, I'm a speaker. I've got friends who are speakers, and they all say, look, kids are the hard, especially if they think, kind of, right, come on, mister, impress me. And actually, I think we want to do it to kids who kind of want to learn rather than ones who are forced to learn. And so we're going to work with private people who can put their kids into events. And then when they buy a ticket, the wealthier kids buy a ticket to the event, it gifts a less advantaged student the opportunity to come in and learn together. Nice. Sponsored by someone else. Yeah. It's a non-profit organisation, so any profits made are just put back into sponsoring more people coming through, and really trying to, you know, invest in people and show that, you know, actually someone cares.
Yes.
And there is a different way, and just giving people the basic financial education that is just so lacking at the moment.
I totally agree with you, and love to give you some support, some tips, and
that would be awesome. Thank you.
Some contacts as well. So, Simon, thank you so much for the wealth of information you've just shared with us. How can our listeners contact you and learn more about your services that you have?
So a couple of things. If people have not read Property Magic, they should absolutely go and check out Property Magic. It's on Amazon. It's normally in the top 5. Get it on Audible as well. If you prefer. I love to listen to books, so you can get on Audible as well. So that's one thing you should do. If you've already read or listened to Property Magic, I would encourage you to go and listen or read it again, because I promise you will pick up things you missed the first time around. It's one of those books where you can't take it all in at first. So that's the first recommendation. The other thing is, why not come along to one of our property investor network meetings. We've been doing everything virtual during the lockdown, but in January this month, we should be doing, I think, 30 meetings live around the country. The rest are all virtual, and by March, April 2022, the plan is to have all the meetings live again. It's £20 to come along to a network meeting. We have some great speakers, great opportunity to connect with local people in your area who are investing. You can potentially learn from them and work with them. But as our gift, I think what we're going to do, we're going to come up with a savvy business women code or something that we're going to put in the show notes. So you can go to pinmeeting.co.uk, use the link we're going to use the code we're going to put in the show notes, and you can come to the very first Property Investor Network completely free, courtesy of this show, which is a gift, just to come and check it out, see if you like it. And then if you want to connect to me, I've got a Facebook page you can follow. So just Google me, Facebook me, you can follow that. LinkedIn's a great way to actually connect with me. So Simon Zutshi, Zutshi. And finally, we are doing we've got some training about what I believe is one of the best strategies for 2020. We've got some free resources, some videos, we have some live webinars and things. And I believe we're going to share a link to that. It's happening fairly soon, so you've got to take action quickly. It's coming on that complimentary training that's really going to help you get the most out of 2022. And I hope all those resources are going to be useful.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners and viewers, for watching our show, the Savvy Property Investors Show. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, download, and definitely share. Thank you once again, Simon, for being our special guest to the new start of 2022. It's been a pleasure and it's been very enjoyable. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
This week's episode of the Savvy Property Investors Podcast was brought to you by our sponsor, the Savvy Women Group. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's show, head over to our website, www.savvywomen.co.uk to gain access to our free resources and more insights about our guest speaker today. Remember, we make your business our business, so you can unlock your full potential and improve your quality of life.